Now, Baal and Astarte, I want to mention something here while we're at it. And one of the reasons why I read Aqhat, Astarte was transformed into Astaroth. The so-called demon Astaroth is actually the Canaanite goddess Astarte. And this is so, as long as you know that, as long as that's what you're going for, in fact, when we conjure Astarte, we say Spirit of Astaroth, Goddess Astarte. We do both, you know. And then we apologize once we get Astarte. We apologize to her for summoning her with such strong incantations, you know, and whatever. We have a regular apology. Now, so I would suggest either starting with Baal, and that's Baal. That's the first spirit of the Goetians. Or I would start with Visago. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, sir.
Well, that's good. And if you got anything else you want to add, or anything else you would?
In terms of Tetracon, because I'm still also working on that, what would be like? I know it varies from experiment to experiment, but if you was to say roughly, what would be a good aim for? Like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get that to where it's like comfortable.
Well, now wait a minute. I don't quite follow what you're saying here. What do you want to do for 15 minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I said the word wrong. Tetracom, the fixed gaze.
Oh, Tritacom.
Yes.
15 minutes is a little long for starters. I would try 5 minutes at a time. You know, you keep doing this, you'll get to where you don't blink. One of the things about magicians who do this, we don't blink. At least not when we don't want to. So, you know, but consequently, when you're first getting started on Tritacom, I'd say 5 minutes at a stretch. And, you know, use that pearl method. Now, in Solomon's Magic, we have that samadhi lamp, which is it's kind of difficult to build, and you got to have an overhead fixture and all that. So now what we've gone to doing is just put a piece of black felt down, put a synthetic pearl in the middle of it, sit there in the sauna and just stare at it. And stare. This is a Raja Yoga technique. Just stare at it for 5 minutes and empty your mind. Don't think about anything. Don't let it play any tricks on you, and just do that. And that's, because some interesting, you will get some very interesting effects anyway, but that will really develop your Tritacom, okay?
Yes.
And I'll give you that what Carlos Castaneda calls the doing of not doing. In other words, this fixed, steady gaze at a fixed object, and you don't think about anything. You just look at it, and you don't look around it, and you don't analyze it, and you don't play games with it. You just look at it, and you have that anticipation. It's one of these things you got to train yourself to do to really appreciate it. Did that give you what you want to know?
Oh, yes, excellent.
Okay,
thank you very much, Mr.
Lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for calling. Okay, we got another one?
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you. You answered all my questions.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Call again. Now, that's the Goetia for Baal and Astarte. This is how I got started really with Goetia, was with Baal and Astarte. So, because I knew that Astarte was King Solomon's muse, so to speak, and might have even been the inspiration for the Song of Solomon, and the Queen of Sheba, of course, could also have been the inspiration for that. But we got started with the two of them based upon the Solomonic legend and the fact that we know that Astaroth and Baal were originally Baal and Astarte. So that's the connection to the Goetia. Now, we have coming up, probably be published in, I kept saying before last seasonal ceremony to have it out, but too many things have come up in the interim. And we have another seasonal ceremony, of course, coming up this coming month. I'm going to try to get the new seventh ray, our new journal, out before this next seasonal ceremony, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. But I guarantee it will be out this summer. Now, what I thought I would do for the remainder of the hour here was read you some excerpts from articles and features that are coming up in the new Seventh Ray. Now, we haven't published the Seventh Ray in years, and so we've got a lot of wonderful material coming up in this journal. The material that's really significant, and some of it is quite entertaining. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit of this material for you and comment on it a little bit. Now, of course, we have a Seventh Ray cartoon, and every issue, of course, we have a cartoon. Now, this issue, I'm not going to tell you what the cartoon looks like, but the title of the cartoon is The Origins of German Sex Magic. So that's one you really want to look at. And now, what we're going to do in the new Seventh Ray coming out, we're going to have our own special version, specially compiled version of the magical parts, magical episodes of the famous Saragosa manuscript of Jan Potocki. Now, a lot of you probably don't know about this, but the Saragosa manuscript, or more properly, the manuscript found in Saragosa, is one of the most mysterious and magical novels that's ever been published. It came out about 1841, actually, but it was written sometime earlier by a very fascinating fellow, Jan Potocki. He was a Polish nobleman who was a Mason, a Rosicrucian, an occult scholar, and something of a demonologist, and quite a libertine, a very fascinating character, almost like a sort of an earlier Aleister Crowley. And he finally committed suicide after returning from Mongolia. He committed suicide by a church-blessed silver bullet. You wonder what he ran into in Mongolia. Of course, Mongolia is the original origin of the werewolves. But anyway, Potocki wrote this Saragosa manuscript as a magical novel that takes place in Spain back in the 18th century in Spain, right after the Napoleonic Wars. And it's a fascinating story of gypsies and Kabbalists and secret Muslim caverns where the exiled Muslims live in these caverns, and they have this fabulous treasure. And of course, it's very, very erotic and just fascinating. I'm going to read you a little bit of this, just the introduction. In the introduction, it says, Saragosa manuscript, properly titled The Manuscript Found in Saragosa, is now considered a classic of literature, and was first published in an almost complete version in 1847, 32 years after its notorious author's mysterious suicide. Count Jan Potocki shot himself with a church-blessed silver bullet. Potocki had been a world traveler, a Freemason, a secret agent, and a libertine, and he was also a master of the dark side of occultism. And no author with such a background could have selected a more fitting location for a mysterious story of intrigue, exotic adventure, and supernatural horror than the wild Sierra Morena mountains of southern Spain in the 18th century. Like the Carpathian Mountains of Transylvania, this region of Spain was a seething cauldron of ethnic and cultural conflict. The rugged Sierra Morena hill country provided an uneasy refuge for Jews, Muslims, Gypsies, and who only pretended to be Christian. The vast network of caverns under the mountains, ruled by the mysterious and powerful Moorish Gomelez family, is a metaphor for the secret double lives of these reluctant Roman Catholics. Now, with that said, let's go and get into this thing just a little bit, see what it's like. Now, the synopsis of the story. In the early years of the 18th century, a young Dutch officer, Captain Alphonse van Woerden, has received a commission in the elite Spanish Walloon Guards, and from a port in Seville, he sets out on horseback to join his regiment in Madrid. Now, he journeys across the haunted region of the Sierra Morena, north of Cordova. This mountain wilderness has a terrible reputation as a hideout for bandits, smugglers, gypsies, witches, and sorcerers. But it is the most direct route to his headquarters, and as a point of honor, he refuses to take the longer and the safer route most traveled. As night approaches, he descends into a desolate valley where he finds an abandoned inn overlooking a hill upon which a gallows has been erected. The only inhabitants of this somber vale are two rotting corpses dangling from a gibbet. Van Woerden suspects that the cadaverous pair must be two of those infamous Soto brothers who had long terrorized the area as bandits and more recently, following their execution, as undead vampires. And on the door of the deserted inn, Van Woerden finds a placard on which is scrolled a warning: "Traveler, go your way and under no pretext tarry here for the night." Now, that's part of the synopsis. Now he meets the Kabbalist, Pedro Uzeda, and of course the Kabbalist is a converto. He's one of the Jews who was forced to pretend that he was a Christian, and Uzeda, Pedro Uzeda, wakes up under the Soto brothers, these two rotting corpses. And this is a recurring thing in the Saragosa manuscript. These people have these really wild, magical, erotic dreams, and yet they end up waking up the same place, under the Soto brothers. And then eventually the Soto brothers fall off of their rotting gallows, and so you're going to wake up with the Soto brothers. But Pedro has a sister, Rebecca, and Rebecca is a fascinating lady. And now the Poles made a classic movie, a classic film of the Saragosa manuscript, which I believe is now out on DVD, and it goes on for 5 hours. It's a great film, and Rebecca in the film, oh boy, we can't figure out how Rebecca stays in this gown in the film. But anyway, I'm going to read some of Rebecca's tale here. You'll probably get a kick out of this. I read it at Bardic Circle, one of the last seasonals, and everybody liked it. Okay, Rebecca's tale. After 4 days spent of listening to the tales of the gypsy chief and reading a strange narrative from the Kabbalist's library, Captain Van Woerden realized that Rebecca had gone missing. He left the castle to search for her. He reached the Venta Quemada, that's the inn, and found Rebecca just as he had found Pedro 5 days earlier, sleeping between the decomposing bodies of the Soto brothers. He awakened her gently, and after she recovered from the shock of seeing, and no doubt smelling, her incubi in corporal form, she agreed to tell Van Woerden her story. She summarized that part of the narrative that her brother had already imparted, being the events leading up to their venerable father's revelation of the spectral brides and grooms he had arranged for them before his death. She then recounted that, unlike her brother, she was not at all enthusiastic at the prospect of astral polygamy, and therefore declined to practice her Kabbalistic exercises in preparation for the sun's entry into the sign of Gemini. Now, Pedro became very displeased with her over this, and even conjured the formidable shade of their dead father, Mamun, himself to chastise her. Rebecca was terrified, but still she refused to prepare for her polygamous destiny.